My name is Reena Kapoor. I'm 28 years old. 4 months ago, I was sitting in my parents' dining room in Edison, New Jersey, the night before the biggest job interview of my life. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing. I'd researched the company, rehearsed my answers, picked out my outfit. I was nervous but ready, and I made the mistake of being excited about it out loud. My father set down his chai, looked at me across the table and said, "Reena, whatever you do, don't use my name on your resume or in that interview. Don't mention this family. You'll embarrass us." My mother was sitting right there. She didn't say a word. My older brother Nikhil laughed softly into his phone. I stared at my father, the man who ran a successful consulting firm, who had a name that opened doors across the tri-state area, and realized he genuinely believed I would damage his reputation just by being associated with him professionally. But what he didn't know was that the company interviewing me had already seen my work. They'd found me, not the other way around. And 3 months later, when my name appeared in a Forbes profile about rising leaders in biotech, my father's business partner called him to ask if I was his daughter. The look on his face when he couldn't take credit for what I'd built was something I'll carry with me forever. Before I tell you what happened, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love hearing from all of you. Now let me take you back to where this really started. Growing up in an Indian-American household in central New Jersey, I learned early that achievement wasn't optional, but recognition was reserved for my brother, my parents. Dad was the founder and managing partner of Kapoor and Associates, a mid-size IT consulting firm he'd built from nothing after immigrating from Punjab in 1989. He pulled in over $400,000 a year and considered himself a pillar of the community. Mom had a master's degree in chemistry but never worked. Dad didn't want her to. She channeled all of her intelligence into managing the household, which mostly meant managing Nikhil's trajectory. My brother Nikhil was 3 years older, Rutgers undergrad, Columbia MBA, hired at Dad's firm right out of school, groomed to take over the business. Me? I was the daughter, the one who was expected to study hard, stay quiet, marry well, and never outshine anyone in the family. When I was 15, I won the New Jersey State Science Olympiad in molecular biology. My team placed second nationally. I came home with a trophy and a letter from the competition director calling me one of the most gifted young scientists in the Northeast. Dad glanced at the letter. "That's good, but focus on your math scores. You need to get into a good college." Same month, Nikhil got accepted into Rutgers. Dad threw a party. 60 people. Catered Indian food. A banner in the living room. He gave a speech about the next generation of Kapoor excellence. I told myself it made sense. College acceptance is bigger than a science competition. My turn would come. At 22, I graduated from Johns Hopkins with a degree in biomedical engineering, summa cum laude, with a published research paper on gene therapy delivery mechanisms. I'd been recruited by 3 pharmaceutical companies before I even walked across the stage. My parents came to graduation. Dad spent most of lunch telling the table about Nikhil's new position at the firm. Mom asked me when I was going to start thinking about settling down. I just graduated from one of the top universities in the country with the highest honors. They asked about marriage. I told myself it was cultural, that they were proud but didn't know how to show it, that eventually the work would speak for itself. At 25, I was 2 years into my career at a biotech startup in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'd helped develop a patent-pending drug delivery platform. My name was on the patent. I asked my father if he'd like to see the documentation. "Reena, I don't understand what you do. Nikhil's work I understand. Business, clients, revenue. Your thing with the molecules, I can't explain that to anyone at Temple." He couldn't explain it, so it didn't count. That same year, my parents gave Nikhil a $120,000 interest-free loan to buy an apartment in Manhattan. When I asked if they could help me with a $10,000 deposit on a studio in Cambridge, I was paying $2,300 a month in rent on a $68,000 salary. Dad said, "You chose to move to Boston. That's your responsibility." $120,000 for Nikhil, 0 for me. I told myself it was different. Nikhil was staying close to the family business. I had chosen my own path. But all of that was preparation for the night that broke everything open. The night before my interview, when my father told me not to use his name because I'd embarrass the family, something inside me went very still. Not angry, not sad, still. Like the surface of water right before it freezes. I looked at my mother. She was studying her plate. I looked at Nikhil. He was scrolling his phone, half smiling, completely unbothered. "Embarrass you how, Dad?" I asked quietly. "You know what I mean. You're smart, Rena, but you don't have the polish, the presence. If people connect you to me and you don't perform well, it reflects on the firm, on the family name." I didn't have the polish, the presence. His daughter, who had graduated summa cum laude from Johns Hopkins, who had her name on a biotech patent, who had been headhunted by one of the fastest-growing pharmaceutical companies in the country, didn't have the polish. I drove back to my apartment that night in silence. No music, no podcast, just the hum of the highway and my own thoughts. Sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes with the engine off and the windows fogging from my breath. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I started listing everything. Every achievement dismissed, every milestone ignored, every dollar given to Nikhil that I never saw. The Science Olympiad trophy still sitting on a shelf in my childhood bedroom, never moved to the living room where Nikhil's awards were displayed. The graduation they attended in body but abandoned in spirit. The patent they never once asked about. The $120,000 loan versus my rejected $10,000 request. The birthday dinners that were always at Nikhil's favorite restaurant. The holiday conversations that always circled back to the firm. The total financial disparity over 10 years. Approximately $187,000 in direct support to Nikhil. Loans, gifts, investments in his career, down payments. For me, $0. Not $1. Not one co-signed lease. Not one plane ticket to visit me in Cambridge. Not even a congratulatory dinner when my first patent was published. From that parking garage, I made a decision I should have made years ago. I would never again measure my worth by whether my father could explain it at Temple. I would build something so undeniable that his approval would become irrelevant. And I would do it using my name, my full name, Rena Kapoor, without apology. I went to bed. I woke up at 5 a.m. I crushed that interview. What happened next changed everything, and it started with a woman named Dr. Simone Atchison. Simone was the chief scientific officer at Meridian Therapeutics, the company that had reached out to me. She was 52, British-Nigerian, Oxford-educated, and had spent 25 years in pharmaceutical development. She'd led teams that brought 4 drugs to market. She held 11 patents of her own. She was precise, brilliant, and the kind of woman who listened more than she spoke, which meant that when she did speak, rooms went silent. She found my published research through a colleague at MIT who had cited my paper in his own work. She'd read my patent filing. She'd tracked my career trajectory for over a year before having her recruitment team contact me. I didn't apply for this job. This job applied for me. And my father had no idea. During the interview, which took place in Simone's corner office overlooking the Charles River, walls lined with framed patents and a single photograph of Marie Curie, she didn't ask me to explain my resume. She asked me to explain my vision. Where do you see gene therapy delivery in 10 years, Rena? Not where the industry sees it. Where do you see it? I talked for 20 minutes. I forgot I was in an interview. I forgot to be nervous. I just talked about the science I loved, the potential for targeted delivery systems that could reduce chemotherapy side effects by 60%, the polymer research I'd been doing on my own time, the gaps I saw in current platforms that nobody was addressing. When I finished, Simone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've interviewed 47 candidates for this position over 6 months. You're the first one who talked about the science like it was personal. That's what I need. Someone who cares about this the way I do." She offered me the job that afternoon, Director of Novel Delivery Systems. Salary, $142,000, plus equity options, plus a $30,000 signing bonus, plus a dedicated research budget of $1.2 million for my first year. I was 27 years old. I had my own lab, my own team of 8 researchers, My own budget, my own title on a door with my name on it. My full name, Reena Kapoor. No apologies. Over the next 10 months, everything accelerated. Month 1. I restructured the delivery systems division, identified 3 redundant processes that were costing $180,000 annually. Simone approved my restructuring plan within a week. Month 3. My team developed a prototype nanoparticle delivery mechanism that showed a 42% improvement in targeted drug absorption during preliminary testing. We filed a provisional patent, my second patent, and I was 27. Month 5. Meridian secured a $14 million Series B funding round. In the investor presentation, Simone introduced me by name and said, "Reena Kapoor is the reason this technology exists. She's the future of this company." 7 investors were in the room. I stood up and presented my research to people managing hundreds of millions of dollars, and I didn't stammer once. Month 8. A journalist from Forbes reached out. She was writing a piece on women under 30 transforming the biotech industry. Simone had recommended me. The interview lasted 2 hours. The photographer came to my lab. I stood next to my whiteboard covered in molecular diagrams and smiled for a camera that my father never would have pointed at me. Meanwhile, back in New Jersey, my family carried on as though nothing had changed. My parents called occasionally, surface-level conversations. "How's work?" "Fine." "Are you eating enough?" "Yes." "Nikhil just landed a big client, did you hear?" Always about Nikhil. Mom texted me once asking if I'd thought more about Match.com or letting Auntie Priya set me up with her friend's son. I was running a $1 million research lab. She wanted to know about my dating profile. Nikhil never called me once during this period. Not once. He did, however, text me to ask if I could look over a proposal he was writing, for free, because he needed someone with a science background to make the technical parts sound smart. The old Reena would have spent her weekend editing his work. The new Reena wrote back, "My consulting rate is $250 an hour. Happy to send you an invoice." He didn't respond. The Forbes article published on a Tuesday in October. 30 under 30 in biotech, the women rewriting medicine's future. My photo, standing in my lab coat next to a whiteboard covered in molecular diagrams, smiling like someone who had finally stopped apologizing. My name, my research, 2 full pages about my work at Meridian, my patents, my vision for gene therapy delivery. The journalist wrote that I'd built my career independently, without family connections or inherited networks, calling me a self-made scientist in an industry that often runs on legacy. It did not mention my father's consulting firm. It did not mention Kapoor and Associates. It did not mention Nikhil or Rutgers or Columbia. It didn't need to. My name stood on its own. Within 48 hours, the article had been shared across LinkedIn, Twitter, and every South Asian professional network in the tri-state area. I received 340 LinkedIn connection requests in 1 week. My inbox flooded with messages from young South Asian women in STEM saying the article had inspired them. 12 companies reached out about potential collaborations. 2 universities invited me to give guest lectures. A podcast about women in science asked me for an interview. And then the call came. Not from my father, from his business partner, Raj Anand. Raj called my father on a Wednesday morning and said, "Vikram, is this Reena Kapoor in Forbes your daughter? The biotech director?" My father, according to my mother, who called me that evening in a voice I'd never heard before, something between pride and panic, didn't know what to say. "He just sat there," Mom told me. "Raj kept asking questions. How long has she been doing this? Why didn't you tell us? Vikram, your daughter is in Forbes." My father, who had told me not to use his name because I'd embarrass the family, suddenly couldn't figure out how to claim me fast enough. He called me that night. For the first time in my adult life, my father initiated a phone call to me. Not to ask a favor, not to relay news about Nikhil, to talk to me. "Reena, I saw the article." His voice sounded different, smaller somehow, like the air had gone out of it. "Okay." "I didn't know you were doing all of this. A director position? Patents? Forbes?" Raj couldn't stop talking about it. He said his daughter showed him the article. 3 people at the office brought it up today. You never asked, Dad. Silence. A long one. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the television in the background, Mom watching her shows in the other room, the life I'd grown up in humming along without me. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I waited for those words to land the way I'd always imagined they would, with warmth, with relief, with the feeling of finally being enough. I'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, in the shower, in the car, in the quiet moments before sleep. My father saying he was proud. My father seeing me. But the words landed flat, like a coin dropped in an empty room. No echo, no resonance, just a sound. Because I'd already given myself the validation he was offering, and mine meant more. Thank you, I said. But I need you to understand something. I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because you told me I'd embarrass you. I did it because the person who should have believed in me the most was the one who believed in me the least. I built this career with my name, our name, and I didn't embarrass anyone. I honored it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I was wrong. 3 words. After 28 years, 3 words. Yes, I said. You were. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't list every grievance. I just let the truth sit between us like a document neither of us could edit. The weeks since that call have been a slow, careful renegotiation. My father sent me a handwritten letter, the first he'd ever written me in my entire life. It was 2 pages long, written on his firm's letterhead, which struck me as both ironic and oddly fitting. He talked about his own father back in Punjab, who never acknowledged his achievements either, who told him that leaving for America was foolish and that he'd come crawling back within a year. He talked about fear, the fear that if I failed publicly, it would undo everything he'd built in this country. He said he understood now that his fear had become cruelty, and that protecting his name had meant erasing mine. He said he was sorry. I read that letter 4 times. I cried on the 3rd reading, not because I was sad, but because I'd waited 28 years for him to see me, and he'd finally written it down in ink. I believe him. I do. But belief and trust are different things, and trust takes longer than a letter to rebuild. My mother has started calling more. Real calls, asking about my research, my team, my life. She told me last week that she'd shown the Forbes article to everyone at Temple. 3 aunties asked for your phone number for their sons, she said. I laughed. Some things don't change. Nikhil texted me after the article. Congrats, that's cool. 4 words. Better than nothing, I suppose. We're not close. I don't know if we ever will be. But I've stopped needing him to see me. I've stopped needing any of them to see me. Simone sees me. My team sees me. The scientific community sees me. And most importantly, I see me. Today, I run a research division at a company that sought me out because of my work. My 3rd patent is pending. My salary is more than my father made in his first decade of business. I live in an apartment I chose, in a city I love, building a career that has my name on it. Reena Kapoor, in full, in print, in Forbes, on patents, on doors. Last month, Simone and I had dinner. She raised her glass and said, "To the woman who talked about gene therapy like it was personal, it was always going to be you, Reena." I think about my father's words sometimes. Don't use my name. You'll embarrass us. And I think about what I'd tell the 15-year-old version of me, standing in that living room holding a science Olympiad trophy that nobody celebrated. I'd tell her, the people who can't see your light aren't standing in the dark. They're just looking the wrong way. Stop waiting for them to turn around. Walk toward the people who are already facing you. If you're watching this and you've been told you're not enough by the people who should have championed you first, if you've been dismissed, overlooked, or warned not to aim too high because you might reflect badly on someone else, I need you to hear this. Your name is yours. Your achievements are yours. Your worth was never theirs to grant or withhold. Build something that doesn't need their signature. And when they finally come looking for credit, you'll already be too far ahead to notice. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Have you ever achieved something incredible that your family refused to acknowledge until it became public? How did that moment feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, you don't need permission to be extraordinary, you just need to stop asking for it.